Hey guys, what's going on? Realm Gaming here, back to the video. Today's episode, I wanted to do a quick tier list on hero talents for healers, specifically in War Within. Now, this tier list is going to be based on what I think are the best reworks, not necessarily what's the strongest. There's no way we'll know what the strongest is until the game's actually released. They change. I mean, the beta is changing every single week. Numbers are changing, so there's no way we could do a power tier list. However, I do think that we can kind of go in here and look at what's the most fun, what's the most interesting. I think the base set of talents, for the most part, are already in place. I don't think we're going to see things change too much in terms of which individual talents are on each tree. However, the scaling will probably change a bunch. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started here. Let's just go ahead and start with Archon here. So Archon, to me, in terms of fun, in terms of how interesting the tree is, from a Mythic Plus standpoint, is going to have to be probably D tier. I think this is one of the worst trees that I've seen so far, and the fact that it works around a halo is just, it's kind of boring to me. It's kind of bland. There's nothing super interesting to it. So I think they really dropped the ball here on Archon, unfortunately, and what I think they should have done is they should have given us like a holy form. So similar to Shadow Priest, where you have a shadow form, if they could have given us some sort of holy form or some sort of ascendance type restoration ability where we go into this better version of ourselves and we get access to new abilities, I think that's what they should have done with the spec instead of just beefing up Halo. Now, the tree is not completely bad in Archon. I think the right-hand side of the tree is actually decent. Bringing up the tree here, right? What they did to Surgelite, I think, is really good. What they did with Flash Heal, with Surgelite, Empowered Surges, and then Energy Cycle, I think were all really good changes. However, I think that this half of the tree, this 2/3 of the tree over here is not very good. It's not fun to play around. However, Concentrated Infusion is nice. I would like to see that. So I'd say a third of the tree is there. I'd say 2/3 of the tree is not quite there yet. All right, so next one, let's go ahead and do Totemic for Restoration Shaman. For me, this is going to be A tier, high A tier, fringe S tier. And the reason for this is because they're leaning more into totem gameplay. That is a huge reason that people play Shaman in general, is for totems. Now with Totemic, we'll go over to the tree here really quick. They did make some changes to Surging Totem, which is really nice. Now Surging Totem spawns at the feet of the totem rather than just randomly on an ally. So they made a great change there. I think two other very interesting talents here is going to be Lively Totems, which is going to really buff our Healing Stream Totem, because now our Healing Stream Totems are going to proc chain heals. So this could be a scenario, right, where we're moving away from Cloudburst Totem, we're leaning more into Healing Stream Totem, and we're trying to utilize as many of those chain heals as we possibly can. Another really interesting talent here is Totemic Rebound. So Chain Heal now jumps to a nearby totem once it reaches the end of its charges, and then it kind of starts again. It casts another Chain Heal at 30% effectiveness to hit 2 more nearby targets. So this is going to be a fun tree because it's almost like you have 2 Restoration Shamans in your group at any given time, and it's just like these Chain Heals are all over the place. And, you know, I think if you do play Restoration Shaman, you're probably a fan of Chain Heal. Again, on the Totemic tree, they're kind of doubling down on both totems and chain heal. I see it as a win overall. Okay, up next, let's go ahead and do Chronowarden. So Chronowarden for me is probably going to be B tier in terms of a fun factor. I do think that in terms of quality of life, this tree's made a lot of good changes to Evoker. Now looking into the tree a little bit further, basically we've changed the way Living Flame works. So now it's been turned into Chrono Flame, and it's basically just going to buff it. It's going to put a hot or a dot on the target, depending if you're healing or doing damage with it. And then also at the bottom of the tree, we shoot 3 Chrono Flames after we use an empowered spell, such as Dream Breath. 3 Chrono Flames will go out, and they'll either heal or damage your target. Another thing that's kind of changing with healing in general is we are kind of leaning more into a support role. We've seen it with Holy Paladin. We've seen it with the Oracle tree for Priest. And we're also seeing it here with Chronowarden as well. So we have our Temporal Burst. So Tip the Scales overloads you. It's basically a mini Lust for you. And then also, whenever we cast an empowered spell like Dream Burst during that Temporal Burst that we just talked about, we're also going to be buffing an ally as well. Okay, up next is going to be Master of Harmony for Mistweaver Monk. I'm going to put that straight into C tier. I think it could be fun to play around, but to me personally, I don't enjoy this type of playstyle. Basically, the way this hero tree is working is it's kind of like a Cloudburst totem with Restoration Shaman, if you're kind of familiar with that. Basically, you're going to be doing damage, you're going to be doing healing, and you're going to store that vitality up, and you're going to release it and disperse it back out through your Thunder Focus T as damage or healing to your party. Now, one thing that could be really interesting with this tree that I'm not really giving it credit for is Overwhelming Force here. Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick, Tiger Palm deal 15% additional damage to enemies in a line in front of you, reduced beyond 5 targets. So if this ends up being a strong talent, this could maybe move up into B tier, because this would change our rotation on Mythic Plus packs from just spamming Spinning Crane Kick to getting more into like Blackout Kicks, Tiger Palms, and Rising Sun Kicks. So overall, we'll probably put Master of Harmony low B or high C, so kind of fringe here in the middle. Not bad. I think it will be strong. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it. I just didn't think it was super innovative coming into War Within. All right, let's go ahead and get into Holy Paladin now. So Herald of the Sun is going to be S tier for me. I think that this is a very unique tree. I think this will really change how Holy Pally plays, and just overall, just a good design. Now, Holy Paladin have seen some pretty crazy changes. They just removed Daybreak. They just removed Glimmer of Light. However, I think the tree itself is still really good. I'm not saying Holy Paladin as a spec as whole is designed super well. However, this tree is fun to play around, and I think it's very unique. Then we also have our Dawn Light that we play around. So this is going to be activated through your Holy Prism or a Barrier of Faith. And basically it's just going to radiate out healing, and it's going to radiate out damage among your group. So it is something you will have to kind of track and play around. We also have the changes to Eternal Flame that's going to be replacing our Word of Glory. Really nice. It's like a beefed up Word of Glory. It's also going to put a hot on the target. When you factor this into your tier set bonus for the increased effectiveness of our Holy Power Spenders, it actually feels pretty good to press. And then 25% increased healing on yourself. Then finally, Sun's Avatar here, which is the best part of this tree. This is going to turn you into like a laser paladin. You're going to pop your wings. It's going to apply Dawnlight to all your allies, and it's going to link you up with these sort of laser beams. And any sort of allies that pass through it are healed. Any sort of enemies that pass through it are damaged. It's visually cool. It's fun to play around. It's unique. So a win overall for Holy Paladin here. Up next, we have Flameshaper for Evoker. I think this is a really cool hero talent tree. I like what they're trying to do here. And I think it is more innovative than Chronowarden. I'm not saying it's going to be stronger. I don't know, but it's pretty cool. I think it's unique, and I think this will really change the way that Preservation is played. So the way Flameshaper works is it kind of synergizes around this engulf ability, and I like to think of it almost as a combustion from Fire Mage, because it's going to be based on existing dots and hots on your target. The more dots and hots you have on your targets, the more effective engulf is going to be. And the reason I say that is due to Consume Flame. So Engulf will consume 4 seconds of our Dream Breath hot from any target. It's going to detonate it, and it's going to heal all nearby targets for 300% of the amount consumed. So again, the idea of Flameshaper here is to get all the dots up that you can on your targets, all the hots up that you can on your targets. You're going to engulf on top of that to increase their effectiveness. And then right here through Consume Flame, the engulf will also do healing through our Dream Breath. So overall, cool idea. We're going to put it in A tier. Up next, Oracle for Priest. This is also going in D tier. And the reason I'm putting this into D tier is because it's just, again, it's just kind of a boring tree. So kind of like we were talking about earlier, Blizz is trying to lean into this more sort of supportive play style. And I think Oracle is kind of an experiment here. And this is going to be through your Premonition here. And you have 3 different sort of buffs that you have to track and keep up with. And it just sounds sort of tedious to me. There's actually 4 if you factor in Clairvoyance, because Clairvoyance is going to let you be able to use all 3 of these at the same time. But overall, it's it's just a weird tree. It's also really designed around Power Word Shield. There's like 3 or 4 different talents in this tree that revolve around Power Word Shield, which in a Mythic Plus setting isn't really a button that we're pressing that much. So overall, I think that this tree is going to need to be redesigned, unless this could be geared more towards PvP. I'm not really sure. But in a Mythic Plus setting, I don't think that this is going to be a fun tree to play around. And while we're at it, let's just go ahead and finish out the D tier. We also have Wildstalker for Restoration Druid. Again, this might be sort of geared towards a PvP talent or PvP hero tree. So if we look at it here, it seems like this tree is really focusing around cat weaving, which is fine. But the problem is the healing that's tied to this tree seems to be really tied to self-healing and not necessarily group healing. Overall, the tree works by putting these vines on our targets through Rip and Rake, and then also symbiotic blooms on our targets through some of our healing spells like Wild Growth, Regrowth, and Efflorescence. If you go down here to the bottom of the tree, Vigorous Creepers, it's just basically going to increase the effect of those vines and those blooms. One of the problems I have with this tree is that it kind of doubles down on cat weaving. And I don't personally enjoy cat weaving. I know a lot of people watching this probably do. That's a big reason that they play it, and that's great. You know, you can play the game however you want, but I don't personally enjoy that. I know a lot of other people don't enjoy that play style, and it feels like they're forcing that onto us by introducing this tree and removing Moonkin form. Overall, though, I do think that the tree has potential, but it needs serious buffs to throughput, and it does not keep up with Keeper of the Grove right now. And also the fact that they're kind of forcing us into cat weaving just kind of solidifies its place in D tier for me. All right, moving on to Farseer now. Let's go ahead and put Farseer into C tier. And to be honest, Farseer and Archon are kind of on the same level. They're just, you know, we could even move Archon up to fringe C tier. It's not necessarily that they're just flat out terrible trees. It's more of that they're just not innovative in any sort of way. They're not unique in any sort of way, and they're just kind of boring. So let's dive into Farseer real quick. So the way Farseer kind of works is you call these ancestors to kind of come out and help you heal, and that's going to be triggered through your Unleashed Life, and I believe you can also trigger it through, down here at the bottom, through Nature's Swiftness as well. Basically, you're just calling these ancestors. They come out, they kind of help off heal for you, and they just kind of duplicate your spells. Very similar, if you remember from back in the day with Blood DK, we used to have something called Dancing Rune Weapon. It seems like it's kind of playing off that a little bit just for healing in this case. Another thing that's pretty core to this is they are also kind of going more into tidal waves. We already played around tidal waves in Season 4, Season 3. You should have already been doing that. But now tidal waves can stack up to 4 times. So you can stack them a little bit higher and then spin all of them into some sort of like big burst phase if you want. So if you do go this tree, make sure you're getting into tidal waves over here on the right. One more small thing here is with Elemental Reverb, we will get an extra charge on Lava Burst and Riptide. This looks very similar to our Echo of the Elements over here on the right. So if you wanted to skip out on Echo of the Elements, you could and still retain those charges through Elemental Reverb. Okay, let's go ahead and get into Voidweaver. I think Voidweaver is the best tree overall in terms of hero talents that they've designed so far. I think they did a good job with this tree kind of balancing between the holy side of things and the shadow side of things. So if you do run Voidweaver, you're going to be introduced to a lot of more shadow themed and styled spells. And just overall, I think it just flows really nice. Every single spell in the hero tree feels and it looks impactful. So this tree is going to be kind of focused around these entropic rifts that you spawn, and these are going to be channeled through your Void Torrent. So these rifts were actually just recently changed. They were able to be spawned through our Mind Blast, but now they changed that, and now it's through Void Torrent. So I'm not sure if they change any of the scaling or anything, but it sounds like we're not going to be able to get as many rifts out. It sounds like it's a little bit of a decent nerf to the tree. And also looking at Void Blast here, it looks like they changed it. This used to upgrade our Smite, and it would turn it into a Void Blast. Now it's our Mind Blast is upgraded into Void Blast. So again, looks like another nerf here as well. Again, not sure if they changed scaling on that, But this used to be something that we'd be able to spam. Now it looks like it's going to be on a cooldown. So I'll have to go back and see if they changed some of the scaling on this on the spell power there. But again, kind of the way the tree works is these rifts spawn. You kind of have this sort of burst healing and damage phase. And then once the rift goes away, you go back into your normal core rotation. One thing to also note, at the bottom of the tree, we have collapsing voids. So when that rift does collapse, it will radiate out a big burst of damage among the group. So very cool, very unique spec. I think it's going to be fun to play around. What they did with Voidweaver is what they should have done with Archon, but kind of in a holy form. Next, we have Lightsmith for the Holy Paladin. And I can't put this much higher than C tier. It's pretty much the same idea as Oracle. You have this sort of buff that you're throwing out on your allies. You also get a copy of the buff through, I believe it's called Solidarity here. And it's kind of like a mini power infusion that you're throwing out, a mini absorb shield. And it's something that you're going to have to kind of track. So again, Blizzard kind of leaning into that support playstyle a little bit more. Down here at the bottom of the tree, your Blessing of the Forge, and this is just going to have us summon additional sacred weapons. So everything in this tree is just kind of revolving around these holy ornaments and these sort of mini buffs that you're throwing out. So not the coolest tree in the world, so I'm just going to keep it a C tier for now. Up next, we have Conduit of the Celestials, and I'm going to put this in A tier because I think that this will change the way that Mistweaver Monk plays a little bit. So this will play sort of similar to something like Farseer and Restoration Shaman. We had the Ancestors that kind of come out and assist us, and in this case, we have Celestials that come out and assist us with our healing and damage. Now, I do think that Conduit of the Celestials is better than Farseer because it adds some interaction to your gameplay, such as Celestial Conduit. It's a channeled ability. It feels kind of like a Arcane Explosion with Arcane Mage, but in a healing form. So it's kind of cool to play around. We also have Strength of the Black Ox, which is going to be an effect that pops up on your screen as you're healing. It's going to make your next Enveloping Mist cast time reduced by 50%, which is really nice because Enveloping Mist is just always kind of awkward to hard cast that. As a Fistweaver, it's like a 2-second cast time, so it just feels weird. So I think Strength of the Black Ox is going to kind of help offset that a little bit. Then we also have another proc called August Dynasty here that's going to increase the next healing of our Vivify by 50% or the damage of our next Rising Sun Kick by 30%. So it's a proc. It pops up on your screen. You press the button when it pops up. It adds some flavor and just kind of changes up the rotation a little bit. So this is why I think Conduit of the Celestials is a little bit better than Farseer, is there's more interaction in your rotation. Then down here at the bottom, Unity Within, Celestial Conduit can be recast once during its duration to call upon August Celestials to assist you at 200% effectiveness. So at the end of your cast, you can press the button again, or it will automatically cast for you, and you get this sort of like burst of healing. Then finally, we have Keeper of the Grove here. We're going to put this B tier, Fringe C tier. It's kind of doubling down on Grove Guardians, and if you didn't enjoy Grove Guardians and Dragonflight when they're introduced, then you're probably not going to like them in War Within either. So the reason I'm putting it into B tier is because it does kind of change how we play around Grove Guardians, and I think it does it in a better way than it used to. So used to with our Grove Guardians, we could just kind of spam them out whenever we wanted. But now the way it works is these Grove Guardians will provide buffs through Harmony of the Grove here. And each of your Grove Guardians out will increase your healing done by 3%. Then not only do we have that, but we also have Power of Nature here. So your Grove Guardians increase the healing of your Rejuvenation, Efflorescence, and Life Bloom by 5% while active. So it kind of becomes more of you're rotating through your Grove Guardians, trying to always maintain one to increase and further buff up your healing. Now, the main node here is through Dream Surge, and basically your Grove Guardians are going to spawn these petals on the ground, which are then consumed automatically, and they do sort of like a burst healing through your Grove Guardians, which is really nice because I think that's one of the things that Restoration Druid might kind of struggle with more than some other specs is that burst healing. You know, if you think about Restoration Druid, you're more of a proactive than a reactive healer, so you have to kind of predict the damage before it comes out more than other specs, and Dream Surge just kind of help offset that a little bit and turn you a little bit more into a reactive healer. So yeah, guys, this is going to be my tier list. Again, this is just gauging in terms of uniqueness, what's fun, what looks cool to play, not necessarily power or strength. It'll be impossible to determine that until we get more tuning. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. and we will see you on the next one.